In this video, let's see the historical background of Constitution of India. So, as we can see here, this is a podcast. You can download it and hear it at any time, whether you are going to work or college, and you can just click on it and download it, or you can save it anywhere this playlist, and this will help you in just listen to it, and this will help you in revising the concepts as well as in help you in prelims as well as mains preparation of UPSC. So now we will see that what is the historical background of the Constitution of India. So as we all know, the British came to India in 1600 and established us, and after obtaining many firmans, they came as East India Company for trading, and after obtaining many firmans and after the battle of Plassey, so they obtained the Diwani rights of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. So this started their career as a territorial power. And in 1600, they came as an exclusive as an exclusive right of trading, which was granted by Queen Elizabeth I. So after that, the British ruled India from almost in 1765. From 1765, the company rule started till 1857. It was the company rule, that is, East India Company ruled over India, and they passed on many acts and laws, and the for regulation of the laws and law and order of the country. So after that, they obtained. After that, there was the crown rule from 1858 to 1947, which was known as the crown rule, because in 1857, after the Sepoy mutiny, a lot of people started revolting, and the British crown had to take direct responsibility of the governance of India. After that, India became independent on August 15, 1947, and with independence came the need of the constitution. So, in this video, we will not see what is our constitution about or how it was made. We will see the historical background of the Constitution of India. So as we see, as I told you earlier, the East India Company ruled from 1773 to 1858. So the first act that was passed by the East India Company was Regulating Act of 1773. So this act was of great constitutional importance because it was the first act which the East India Company had passed, and it was the first step taken by the British government to control and regulate the affairs of East India Company. So in India, it recognized for the first time the political and administrative functions of the company, and it laid the foundation of central administration in India. So, why is this Regulating Act of 1773 important? That it was because first it was the first step taken by the British government to control and regulate the affairs of East India Company. So, government had taken the first step so that it could control and regulate the affairs of East India Company, and secondly, before this act, the company's affairs were not regulated in India. Secondly, the company's political as well as administrative functions were recognized. And thirdly, it laid the foundation of central administration because the company was the nucleus of the central administration in India. So now we'll see what were the features of this Act of Regulating Act of 1773. So first feature is that there I will only tell you the main features so that you can revise the basic concepts. So the first feature is that Regulating Act of 1773, the first feature is that the Governor of Bengal was made the Governor General of Bengal, and Executive Council was established, and that Executive Council had 4 members, and it assisted in the execution of laws as well as legislations of the various it assisted the Governor General in various works and whatever laws and regulations that were passed by the East India Company. This Executive Council assisted the Governor General. So the first feature of the act was that Governor of Bengal was made the Governor General of Bengal, and then the first Governor General of Bengal was Lord Warren Hastings. So you have to remember this, that the first Governor General of Bengal was Lord Warren Hastings, and then this was act which was mainly centralizing in tendency. So it made the governors of Bombay and Madras presidencies subordinate to the Governor General of Bengal. So before that there were 3 governors: Governor of Bengal, Governor of Madras, and Governor of Bombay. But after the Regulating Act of 1773 was passed, the Governor General of Bengal was the Governor Generals of Madras and Bombay were made subordinate to Governor General of Bengal. Thirdly, it provided for the establishment of Supreme Court at Calcutta, 1774. In 1774, a Supreme Court at Calcutta was established. And fourthly, It prohibited the servants of the company from engaging in any private trade. That is, if the servants were caught in for accepting gifts or engaging in private trade, then or taking bribes, then it was not allowed by the company. That it was not allowed by the British Crown. So before this, there was a lot of corruption in the East India Company. But to regulate this, the Regulating Act of 1773 was passed. Then it strengthened the control of the British government over the company. So this was a law which was passed for regulating the East India companies and the political and administrative functions of the East India Company. So it strengthened the control of the British government over the company by requiring the court of directors to report on its revenue, civil and military affairs. That is, the court of directors, that was the governing body of the company, had to report its revenue, civil and military affairs to the British Crown. So this is what Regulating Act of 1773 was. So I will revise again for you so that you can remember. Governor of Bengal was made the Governor General of Bengal. Such first Governor General was Lord Warren Hastings. Then after that, the Bombay and Madras Presidency, governors of Bombay and Madras presidencies were made subordinate to the Governor of Bengal. Then after that, Supreme Court was established at Calcutta in 1774, and it prohibited the servants of the company to engage in any private trade or take gifts and bribes and presents or bribes. And then the court of directors had to report. Court of directors, which was the governing body of the company, had to report its civil, military, and revenue affairs, military, civil, and revenue affairs to the company, so to the British Crown. So it strengthened the control of the British government over the company. Then after that came the Pitt's India Act of 1784. So this Pitt's India Act was a very small act. It was before that there was one more act. It was known as Act of Settlement. It came in 1781. The Act of Settlement was passed, and after that came the Pitt's India Act of 1784. So in case of Pitt's India Act of 1784, there were some defects which had been left by the Regulating Act of 1773. So to rectify the defects or to make corrections in the Regulating Act of 1773, this Pitt's India Act of 1784 was passed. So as we can see here, sorry, as you can hear that, this is a podcast. So the next important act was Pitt's India Act of 1784, and the features of the act is that it distinguished between the commercial and political functions of the company. So for the first time, the commercial and political functions of the company were distinguished. That is, commercial functions were made separate from the political functions. So court of directors managed the commercial affairs and board of control managed the political affairs. So the court of directors now manage the political affairs, and the board of control manage the uh, commercial court of directors manage the commercial affairs, and board of control manage the political affairs. So there was the commercial and political functions of the company were separated, and court of directors were established, which handled the commercial affairs, and board of control, which handled the political affairs. Now it empowered the board of control to supervise and direct all operations of the civil and military government. That is, the board of control, which managed the political affairs, had the right to direct all operations of civil and military government or revenue of the British possessions. So it was the board of control was made to manage the political affairs. So it managed the political affairs, that is the civil, military government or revenues of the company, and reported it to the British Crown. And the court of directors managed the commercial affairs. So this was all about features of the 1784 Pitt's India Act. And one more important point is that the company's territory in India were for the first time called the British possessions in India, and British government was given the supreme control over company's affairs and its administration. That is, for the first time in the history, the territories of the East India Company were called British possessions, and also there was the British government was given supreme control over the administration of the British possessions in India and the company's affairs. So this company's affairs, which was mainly political affairs, which was mainly executed by the board of control of the East India Company, that they directly reported to the British government, and this British government was given the supreme control over company's affairs and its administration. So after that came the Charter Act of 1833. This, as you can see, the first two acts were of centralizing tendency, and this act was again of a centralizing tendency. Charter Act of 1833. Centralizing tendency means uh, The centralizing tendency means the concentration of power in one hand, that is one hand that is on a single person or a single company or a single government. And this is what we mean by centralizing tendency. So as we can see here, Charter of Act of 1833, it was the final step towards centralization. So features of the act were that it made the Governor General of Bengal Governor General of India, and vested in him all civil and military powers. So, as we can see here, the first thing that it did was Governor General of Bengal was made the Governor General of India, and all the military and civil powers were vested in him. So this was the first time that there was a government which had authority all over the British positions in India. This happened for the first time, and this was the Governor General of Bengal who was made the Governor General of India. So this first Governor General of India was Lord William Bentinck. So you have to remember this, that during the Charter of Act of 1833, the first Governor General of India was Lord William Bentinck, and it vested in him all the civil and military powers, and he was the first governor. He was the Governor General of Bengal, but after the passing of Charter Act of 1833, he was made the Governor General of India. After that, it deprived the governors of Bombay and Madras of their legislative powers, and gave exclusive legislative powers to the Governor General of India. That is Lord William Bentinck. So the governors of Bombay and Madras presidencies were devoid of their powers, were deprived of their powers, of the legislative powers. After that, the laws made under the provision acts were called as regulations, while laws made under this act were called as acts. Before the Charter Act of 1833, the laws made under the acts were known as regulations, but after this, the laws were known as acts. Laws which were passed were known as acts. And after that, companies' territories in India were held by it. It provided that companies' territories. It told the people India, and it provided that the company's territories in India were held by it in trust for His Majesty, his heirs and successors. So this was the first time that the company's territories in India were held by it in trust for His Majesty, his heirs and successors. So these were the features of the Charter Act of 1833. So you have to remember this. These were the main features of the Charter of Act of 1833. Governor General of Bengal was made the Governor General of India. First such Governor General was Lord William Bentinck. He deprived the governors of Bombay and Madras presidencies of their legislative powers, and gave exclusive legislative powers to Lord William Bentinck. And the British territories and the company's territories in India were held by it in trust for His Majesty, his heirs and successors, and it ended the activities of the East India Company as commercial body, which became a purely administrative body. So this is a very important point, that the East India Company became a purely administrative body, and it ended the commercial and it was ended as a commercial body. Its activities were stopped as a commercial body, and it became a purely administrative body after the Charter Act of 1833. So after that, after 20 years, Charter Act of 1853 was passed, and so in Charter of Act of 1853, so we will see that features of the act were that it separated the legislative and executive functions of the Governor General's Council. That is, the Governor General Council, the Governor General, which was made in the Charter Act of 1833, Governor of Bengal, who was made the Governor General of India. So for the first time, there was a Governor General's Council, and the first time it was separated into legislative and executive councils. So executive council was earlier there was only executive council, but in after the Charter Act of 1853, there were two councils of Governor General, that is the legislative as well as executive. So the legislative councillors were six. There were six new members called legislative councillors, which were added to the legislative council, and in the executive council there were four members. So the Governor General's legislative councils were functioned as a mini parliament for passing laws, and adopted the same procedures as the British Parliament. So this legislation was first time treated as a special function because of the legislative council. After that, after that it introduced an open competition system for the selection and recruitment of civil servants. So the covenanted civil service was thrown open to the Indians. Earlier, there were two types of civil services: covenanted civil service and uncovenanted civil service. The covenanted civil services were of top grade, in which only the British could give the exam. But after Charter Act of 1853, the covenanted civil services were thrown open to the Indians, and it introduced an open competition for the system of selection and recruitment of civil servants. So This was done according to the Macaulay Committee, which was appointed in 1854. After that, this was not done on the basis on the recommendation of the Macaulay Committee. Macaulay Committee was appointed after this thing. Macaulay Committee is a committee on the Indian Civil Service, and it was appointed in 1854. So after that, one of the most important features is that six new legislative members of the Governor General's Council. So there were six after of the six news of the, as I told you, in the Legislative Council there were six members. So of the six new members of the Legislative Council, four members were appointed by the local provincial governments of Madras, Bombay, Bengal, and Agra. So four people were from Madras, Bombay, Bengal, and Agra. So this is uh, what were the features of the Charter Act of 1853, and it also extended the company's rule and allowed it to retain the possession of Indian territories on trust for British Crown, but it did not specify any particular period. So no particular period was specified that when the company rule will end and the British crown rule will start. Earlier the British government used to specify that when the next act will come and when will they pass the next act, and when the next act will be passed, and how the company rule will be uh, how the company rule will continue. But in this time, in after Chapter Act of 1853, there was no such announcement, and it did not specify any particular period for the, unlike the previous charters. It did not specify any particular period that the company's rule will be extended till this year. So these were the features of the Charter Act of 1853, that it separated the legislative and executive functions of Governor General's council, and a new legislative council was formed which had six new members. Of the six new members, four members were to be appointed by the local provincial governments of Madras, Bombay, Bengal, and Agra. And the Indian civil services, covenanted civil services, were thrown open to Indians. And after that, the Macaulay Committee was established, and it did not specify any particular period for the to retain the position of Indian territories. Uh, it did not specify any particular period that the that the East India Company would rule over the British territories, or will hold these territories in the trust for His Majesty. So, or his heirs and successors. So this gave a hint that the company's rule could be terminated at any time under the parliament, at the as the parliament liked.